There is smoke surrounding this area, and behind this thick wall of smoke behind me, there are still flames raging. This is as close as we can get to showing you what happened. As you mentioned, there is a crushed car behind me. Take a look at this. This large tree was not only uprooted from the ground, you can see a gaping hole down there about 6 feet deep. I am right in the middle of chaos right now. These kids are jumping and they're trying to bounce me. It appears the car was traveling north on 1st Street, came up and took out this light post right here, kept going and took out a parking meter that was planted just right here before coming to a stop through the window of the restaurant. He is a social media star with quite the following. I mean, take a look at this crowd of students. There are 4 different warnings in place to stop people from doing what this woman did. Here's number 1, number 2, number 3, and if all else fails, number 4, the fact that there's about 1,000 feet between here and where the bridge gaps at the end. They're taught to treat it as a very real possibility, and their instructor told me if they cannot rise up to the challenge, they need to consider another career. We have an update now on a breaking news story we brought you at the beginning of the newscast. Let's go out and take another live look in Rantoul, where there is a large fire. Still thinking about coffee, and I always think about weather as the determining factor of whether I'm going to do, well, iced coffee versus hot coffee. Oh, so tomorrow is probably the last iced coffee day. Are you kidding me?
Always hot coffee, always hot.
Oh, no, I just
you don't put iced
coffee. Good evening, I'm Emily Braun. There's a lot to unpack here in a budget deal, new taxes, legal sports betting one step closer, and a Danville casino in the mix. We've got team coverage on this tonight. WCIA3's Mark Maxwell is live in Springfield. WCIA3's Miranda Meister is standing by in the newsroom.
Emily, you actually experienced it yourself.
I did, and it all took less than 2 minutes. But in those 2 minutes, I felt the adrenaline and fear that you'd imagine officers experience in a real-life scenario. So I'm going to show you how these officers are trained here to protect their communities should something like this happen. But before I do, I want to warn you, some of these images are a little bit graphic, so viewers' discretion is advised. This looks like a warehouse, but these officers were told this is a school, and there's a suspect in there with brown hair, a black hoodie, and a gun. Officers rush inside. The first thing they see is a victim on the ground. Other victims move toward them, clinging onto their uniforms, begging for help. All of this within about 20 seconds.
We gave them a pretty tough scenario. We hit them as soon as we had shots fired. We had victims bleeding.
Then a man dressed in ordinary clothes with a gun in his hand starts shouting. Not all the officers noticed the badge on his belt.
And they had to make a decision if that was a good guy or a bad guy under split-second conditions.
Jeff Verkler, leading the scenario, leads them through the last part of the drill. One more shot fired, then silence. As they made their way to the last room, they find the suspect dead. In less than 2 minutes, the drill is over, and officers like Tricia Thompson reflect.
My adrenaline was really high. I mean, it's something that we all think about a lot these days, so it was nice to kind of know what to expect.
Verkler debriefed with each officer afterward. He hopes from here they'll get more training from their respective departments, because he says you can't train enough for a job that can kill you.
They know this is a significant event. They know it could very well happen. Or when they're on duty, they could be some of the first responders into this.
It was a thrill, and it was a little scary too, but I think that the training aspect is really beneficial.
This was the Bradley Avenue Bridge in Champaign. This is what's left of it now.
Complete demo from substructure all the way down.
Crews are building a new bridge, safer than the one before. It's a big job. In the meantime,
we go above and beyond the best that we can, always to protect our guys and the public.
The problem is,
the public just doesn't think it applies to them at certain times.
A woman came barreling through and ended up like this. There are 4 different warnings in place to stop people from doing what this woman did. Here's number 1, number 2, number 3, and if all else fails, number 4, the fact that there's about 1,000 feet between here and where the bridge gaps at the end. In this case, a 5th.
We had a guy working on the side of the road, and he tried to get the car to stop. They just weren't paying any attention to him and blew right past him like he wasn't even there.
Todd Baker says there are no skid marks left on the bridge.
There actually was one guy working right in that area that just had to leave to go use the restroom for a second.
No sign of braking.
He missed it. They missed him.
But there's a dent here, and this dash cam video showing exactly where the car did come to a stop.
Could have been a lot worse. If the crew had been working on that slope wall at the time like they'd been doing all morning, there'd have been a couple of guys lost their lives.
Speaking of dash cameras,
there's a lot of crazy drivers these days, so it's nice to have that backup in case something does happen.
he lives close by, and he just got one, but he's glad this video is not his.
Not like that, no.
Baker says before this, they never had any issues with drivers. He hopes their safety is not put in jeopardy again.
Keep in mind it could be your son or your daughter out there working.
So in the end, his crews can finish the project that will make this road safer for everyone. It can be very easy to mistake a BB gun for an actual one. So to address that, let you take a look at this. I took this picture to this park and put some people's instincts to the test. Do you think these guns look real?
Yes, I do think they look real.
Yes.
Yeah,
What if I told you these were BB guns?
they look very real.
Oh, that's shocking.
Someone called Urbana police and reported seeing teenagers walking around with guns. That caller was fooled, and so were most people I asked in the park. Then Lieutenant Richard Searles decided to put me to the test.
Okay, so on this board, there's 13 guns. And I want you to look at this board. I'm just going to let you look at it for just a second. And I want you to tell me how many of these 13 are real. Let me know when you got a good look. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
This one is real.
It's fake.
I think this one's real.
Fake. Let me help you out. They're all fake.
To the untrained eye, it's tough to spot the difference.
They're absolutely designed to look like they're real.
That's why he says the caller did the right thing.
Parents need to be involved in their children's lives, and they need to make sure that they're not going out there in the general public with things that look like real firearms, because there's no point.
Brittany Coleman learned that lesson the hard way.
My son actually left the house with the BB gun, and one of our neighbors thought it was a real gun, and the police ended up coming back to bring the gun back to our house.
Searles says the bottom line is it's better to play it safe and pick up the phone and be assured.
If it's a BB gun, we will deal with it just like some kids with BB guns.
22 years ago, Barb and Jim Esworthy were in a car with their 2 daughters. A drunk driver crashed into them. It took their daughters' lives and changed theirs forever.
It started almost instantly.
As soon as the couple got out of the hospital, they formed an organization dedicated to drunk driving awareness called Journey.
My contribution to Journey was not really very much. About the only thing I had to do was, hey, with the Journey, let's have a double check.
For Jennifer and Jackie, Esworthy wears their memory over his heart. Now he's ready to remember his soulmate.
We were kind of a package deal.
And that's how the law enforcement leaders they worked closely with, like former Champaign County Sheriff Dan Walsh, always thought of them.
If I followed Jim or Barb, I couldn't do it. I was just too choked up. That's how well they conveyed to everybody the terrible tragedy that they went through, and the other people do when they suffer from drunk driving incidents.
They raised money for squad car cameras for the U of I Police Department and Champaign County Sheriff's Office. Officers showed us how those cameras capture undeniable evidence of drunk driving. That's exactly what the Esworthys hoped for.
It's been unbelievable that the Journey is still alive and well, so to speak, 22 years, 16 weeks later. And she did all that.
Barb may be gone, but Jim says her mission will live on.